Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight is a special session. You may have attended some of the classes that I've done before on how to pay for college without going broke and like divorced families. Tonight's is really special because Al is with us and we're going to focus on strategies for wealth, college planning, and retirement. So, how all of these fun things are married together in our world. And I've been doing college planning for 14 years. And I got to go to training with Al just this last year and really dive into this concept he's going to share with us tonight, which I love because it's holistic and it gives you an opportunity to see not just how college is important, but how everything in our financial world is important. And he has some really great strategies and tools he's going to share with us tonight. So I'm going to let Al run the scene for us. And we're going to, just so you know, there are two things in the chat for you that he's going to talk about, and I'll put these in later as well. But there is a blank model for the discussion, and then we have a sample client model. So you should be able to download those PDFs. They were also in the reminder email that you got. So if you're on a computer, you can also feel free to pull that up that way. So Al, feel free to take it away.
Fantastic. Crystal, thank you for this opportunity. Really enjoyed meeting you. I guess it was back in Las Vegas last spring when we had the symposium, and since then to work with you. Appreciate everybody that has taken time out of their busy schedules. I'm going to say tonight because I'm in North Carolina and it's 8:30 here, so it's nighttime here. Getting ready to be night, I guess, out that way. But appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy schedules. Hope your 2025 is off to a great start. Just a little bit of background on me. I started in the business in 1986, right out of college. Been a financial advisor working with clients probably the last 15 years. In addition to working with clients, I've been a consultant and a coach working with advisors like Crystal and others around the country. And so I really enjoy the coaching aspect. I really enjoy working with clients and looking forward to sharing some of what I've learned through the years with you all tonight. So, let me set the stage. One of the things Crystal mentioned is that in the announcement in the chat, there was a model. I would strongly encourage you to, if you can, make a copy of that, have it handy because we're going to be using it a lot. But before I just jump into the model, I wanted to give you a little background on it and I wanted to explain it. So, the model that you see is referred to by those that use it as a PSG model. It is a one-page diagram that allows you to look at all of your financial decisions at the same time. I describe it as four different file cabinets. So if you think about a file cabinet, you think about a way to get organized. What I find with the clients that I work with, most of them live in what I'm going to call a junk drawer world. It's not derogatory towards them, it's just descriptive. We all have those drawers usually in our kitchen, where we just kind of throw everything. And that's what a lot of people have financially because they've worked with different people at different times for different reasons under different circumstances. And so one of the benefits of this model is it helps people to get organized. So let's talk about the different file cabinets. So the first area of the model, these 9 drawers here that I'm outlining, are everything to do with protection. Protection of your car, protection of your home, protection of your assets, protection of your income, talking about medical, long-term care, protection of your health. Government plans would be protection and taking advantage of Social Security. Wills and documents, trust and ownership would be protection of your assets as you look to transfer them to a spouse, children, grandchildren, next generation. And then obviously life insurance would be protection of what we call your economic life value. So everything that you're doing regarding protection, we have a place for it in the model. And we'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. The second file cabinet, this middle section, is what we call the savings component of the model. And we're really dividing this savings component up into really two areas. One, these first six drawers, checking, savings, credit union, CDs, money market, that's all what we call short-term savings, kind of the emergency parking lot of the model. And then when we look at tax deferred, tax free, and tax deductible, that would be more in line of what we're doing to take advantage of long-term savings where there's tax benefits available. The next file cabinet that we come to is the growth component. So now we're getting into things that are helping us to grow our wealth, whether it's bonds, government, corporate, municipal bonds, whether we're putting our monies into preferred stocks, blue chip stocks, managed money account, gross securities accounts, hard assets like collectibles, real estate. Maybe some of you on the call have tax shelters or a business owner. We would put those in that area of the model. And then the last file cabinet is everything that we have related to debt. Obviously, the goal would be at some point to have no debt on the model. But until we get there, there's two types of debt. One is what we call bad debt, and one is what we call good debt. Not going to get too much into that, but obviously, bad debt would be high interest rate credit cards, other debt that you might have. Sometimes it's student loans that have become kind of a ball and chain that people are dragging along with this model. Good debt would obviously be in the form of a mortgage or something like that. So these are the four file cabinets. This is my explanation so that as we go through the model tonight, you understand how the model is set up. There's the thing that I love about it and have my clients, Crystal's clients, have enjoyed is the ability to see all of their financial decisions, every product they own on one page in the model. So we can begin to see how protection is set up for savings, how savings is set up for growth, how growth is compared to debt. So all of a sudden, it's like, think about it like a game board. And your goal is to win the game. Well, there's certain ways that you would set up the board to give you the best chance to win the game. We do the same thing with the model. A lot of people that I work with have gotten frustrated with the financial planning industry because they've given their information to an advisor. The advisors put it into a computer. The computer spit out a 40-page financial plan, and they're having a hard time staying awake because that advisor walks them through all 40 pages. And when they're finished, they still don't know what they have or what they should do. Whereas this visually is so easy to follow. It is really, I think one of the most important aspects of it is this. It's a tool of verification. So not only do we know what everything you're doing is because it's located on the model, but just like a doctor uses an x-ray machine, that's the way we use the model. I mean, you can walk in with a swollen ankle because maybe you were playing basketball or pickleball or something and you rolled your ankle and it's purple and yellow and you can't put any weight on it. And the doctor's opinion may be that you have broken your ankle, but they're not going to do anything to treat that ankle until they take an x-ray. It's not their opinion. They want to verify what the extent of the injury is so they know exactly what they need to do. Well, the model for Crystal and me works the same way. If we have all of your information on the model, then we can begin to figure out, is this model in good shape and healthy, or is there areas that are broken? Not because it's our opinion, but just like an x-ray, the model proves, verifies that this area is broken and we need to do some work to it if financially you want to live as long as possible and live a long, healthy financial life. So I wanted to make sure we understood the model before we kind of dive into how we're going to use it tonight for some of the kind of planning topics that Crystal and I have set up for you. Okay. Now, also setting for the stage for this evening is I want to make sure it's clear that Crystal and I are not here to talk about what's popular. Okay. This is not a lot of financial, what I call entertainers out there you can go to on YouTube and other things that'll talk about what's popular. What I find and what my clients tell us is valuable is the fact that it's not what's popular, it's really what's important. What's important for you to know when it comes to making financial decisions with the hard-earned money that you make? And there's several things that I believe are important, kind of bedrock truths that I want to share with you all tonight that will help you kind of look at your financial decisions and say, hey, I'm in good shape, or wow, there's some areas where I can make some improvements. I need to follow up with Crystal and see what we can do to improve those areas. So, in regards to what's important, one of the first things that I talk to clients about is there's an offense and a defense to the financial decisions that you make. Obviously, we just had the Super Bowl, whether your team won or lost, but we know the Eagles won, and it was because of the defense they played against the Chiefs. So just like in sports, the model is the same way. Defense wins championships, and it's why we focus a lot of our attention in our analysis of the model on the defense. Sometimes I describe it to clients as you are going down two parallel paths and trying to figure out how to navigate between number one, building wealth, the offense, and number two, defending your wealth, defending your lifestyle, defending your family. You don't want to do one or not the other. We've got to make sure that we're going down the parallel paths to make both effective. So I'm going to ask you a question. It's a question that Crystal and I ask our clients all the time. When it comes to protecting the things that are most important to you, your family, the lifestyle that you and your family enjoy, and your assets, do you want failure to be an option or not? Now, clients that I work with love and care about their family. They enjoy their lifestyle. They've built up assets. They don't want to lose any of that. And they say, Al, absolutely not. Crystal, absolutely not. I do not want failure to be an option. And then our follow-up question is, okay, sitting here today without having a model, thinking about all the financial decisions you've made and all the things that you've done, do you know without a shadow of a doubt you've eliminated failure? And clients go, I think I have, but I'm not sure. Well, do you want to be sure? Yeah, I want to be sure, because if I've introduced failure unintentionally, then I want to do something about it. So the thing I love about our model is it starts with protection. See, when we start our discussions with a client about protection and how well their family's protected, their lifestyle's protected, their income's protected, their assets are protected, the message that we hopefully convey is that we care about you. Now, if you take this model and hopefully you've printed it off, one of the things that I get clients to do is I ask them now to turn the model upside down. So if you turn the model upside down, now all of a sudden the model starts with growth. And then it goes to savings. And the last thing you would talk about is protection. Well, this is our model. And when we turn it upside down, I think you get a picture of what the world's model is. Why? Because I believe, and it's my experience, that the world really doesn't care about people. It really cares about your money. And as a result, what people are taught is put money away for retirement in the model, put money away for college in the model, make sure you invest in the market, and make sure, if you can, that you own a home. Well, there are a lot of people walking around looking at a model like this saying, I'm great, I'm perfect, because I'm doing everything the world's telling me to do: saving for retirement, saving for college, investing in the market, owning a home. Now, when we turn the model right side up, one of the things that we do is we draw a line right here in the model, and this is the line that differentiates the model between what's going on defensively and what's going on offensively. So most people that are doing all these things for retirement and college planning and investing and owning a home, they feel really good about their offense, and they should. But without this model and a desire to eliminate failure, the question is, do they have the right defense in place? Said another way, is the defense and the offense, are they balanced? If you think back in feudal times when people built a castle and they had all their wealth and their family and everything they owned was in the castle, what did they do? They built a moat around it. Well, the moat was a particular size based on the size of the castle. It was balanced. Well, we're kind of doing the same thing today with the model, because I think we have to be prepared for the world that we live in, what we call the real world. And here's a visuals, one of my favorite visuals, okay? And what I find is what most people are doing with their money, what most people are doing when they're putting their money into products, when most people are doing planning, there's this assumption that they live in this nice, perfect, smooth world from where they are today to the end, to the finish line. Well, that world doesn't exist. Reality is that whatever you're doing with your money, whatever products you have in place, whatever planning you're doing, has to take in consideration real life. The fact that people do get sued, people do get disabled, their health changes and they have a long-term care event, they die prematurely, there are emergencies, the market doesn't perform like they thought. When all of those things hit, the question is, do you have your money and products and planning going into something that's going to get you to the finish line, even in the real world that we live in? Or is it assuming that the only way you'll get there is the ideal world? So if we take a look at balancing the protection and the defense with the offense, as I said, most people, when I take their information and put it on the model for the first time, everything offensively looks great. They're doing all the right things. It's the defense that's the problem. So we want to make sure if they're involved in a lawsuit, we've eliminated failure. If they have a change in their health, there's an accident, they can't go to work, there's disability in place that would eliminate failure. Their wills and documents have their money going to who they want, when they want, and the amount they want to eliminate any failure. If there's a premature death, the family they leave behind, the model they leave behind will continue uninterrupted because failure's been eliminated. If there's an emergency, there's plenty of liquidity. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is this mindset of having somewhere between 3 months of your living expenses up to 1 year of your income set aside, liquid and available for an emergency. And lastly, when we look at the amount of money that's leaving the model and the interest that you're paying on debt, how does that compare to the amount of money and earnings that you're adding to the model? And what's amazing is, as great as the offense is and the interest that's being earned without a model, a lot of people don't realize that, hey, I'm actually earning less in the market than I'm paying out in debt. So when Crystal and I say to you, ask you the question, do you want to do everything possible to eliminate failure? And you say yes, then these areas with question marks, are where you may have, again, unintentionally, but it's because you don't have a tool like this model to know what to do and have someone like Crystal and me to tell you how to do it, but to take care of those question areas, eliminate failure so that you have a balanced defense for the offense that you're building. Now, Crystal, one of the things I think we shared with everybody is a sample client. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So here's a sample client. Might not look anything like your situation, but here's a couple, 47, two children, Gabby and Alex, 14 and 11. These are actual clients of mine, obviously changed their name. And I will tell you that they were very reluctant to meet with me. They were referred to me by a good friend who's a client of mine. They took the meeting with me just as a favor to their friend. And they said kind of upfront, Al, we've been doing and handling our own finances for a long time. We feel like we're in good shape. We just took this meeting because of the person who introduced us. I said, fine. And I said, let me ask you a question. Sitting here today, do you feel that you've done everything possible to eliminate failure when it comes to protecting your family, your lifestyle, your assets, your income? And they said, well, we think we have. Well, would you want to know? And they go, well, yes. And that started a discussion about the model. And when I gathered their information, if you look at their information and you kind of look at these bottom 12 drawers here, money that's going into 529s, the amount of money they have in their retirement accounts, invested in the market, they own a home. They felt like they were doing all that the world was telling them to do. So I understood their attitude initially. But what they quickly realized as we began to work together and use the model is they had some real areas of concern. They had no umbrella liability. Their disability at work was 60% of their income and it was taxable. They had wills and documents that were actually put in place before their children were born, so it didn't even have guardians. They had life insurance that would replace about 4 to 5 years of their income. They had an emergency goal, a liquidity goal of 25,000. That was kind of what they had as a goal. And so my question was, in regards to these two drawers, why are you keeping 49,000 at low interest rates at the bank and adding money to it? See, without a model, they were so focused on the offense that these problem areas existed, these misallocation of dollars existed. So it was very difficult for them to do all the things that they wanted in balancing their model. Does that make sense, Crystal? Okay, good. So I want to kind of give you an example of what a sample client's model looks like on the actual model. Okay. So I'll stop real quickly, Crystal. If anybody has any questions about anything so far, comments, I'll stop for a second.
Yeah, so feel free. We've got kind of different segments that we're going to go through. And if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you don't have any questions yet, awesome. We will keep on trucking.
Okay.
Nothing so far.
All right. And we've got like 3 sections. This was first section. So as we go through, if we can go through the second section, there's a question that you have, go ahead and type it in. And then when we stop for questions after it or the third section, we can address it, or we'll stop at the end as well. Okay. So nothing, Crystal?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. All right. So what's important for you to know, number 2? Okay. Number 2, and this is kind of Crystal's area of expertise. It's kind of what drew us together, is that college planning is not achieved through a product. College planning is really achieved through a strategy. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. Number 1, I have clients who have no idea how much college is going to cost. Number 2, they have no idea how much money they should be saving. And number three, they have no idea where to put that money that they should be saving. So let's go back to these questions for a second. How much will college cost? Well, one of my favorite things about the software that we use is it comes with some calculators. And so I'll demonstrate one of the calculators, and it's what we call the key objective calculator. And it can talk about an objective in regards to how much should I have saved for retirement, how much life insurance should I have, but we're going to use it for education. So my numbers will be a little different because I live in North Carolina than you. But if a child today was going to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of around 25,000. Let's say that I'm dealing with a family and they have a 10-year-old and they're kind of feeling like, okay, I'm kind of halfway through school, maybe a little past. I need to start getting serious about college. So they've got 8 years before that child's going to go to college. Again, Crystal, I'm not sure about your area of the country, North Carolina. I read things that say college tuition costs are growing at about a 5% a year rate. So that means 8 years from now, what's 25,000 as a freshman today will be somewhere in the neighborhood of around 37,000. Most parents that I work with go, ow, I tell you what, we're going to be paying for 4 years of college. If that child can't graduate in 4 years, then it's up to them. Okay. Well, just because they show up as a freshman, it doesn't stop inflating. And then the last thing is, what interest rate with wherever they're putting their money does the mom and dad feel that they could earn? And it's a pretty important thing. They don't want to take a lot of risk. I hear numbers around the 6 or 7 range. So let's just use 6. So what we find is the number for them is 145,000. How does that actually work? Well, if in 8 years they've built up 145, almost 146,000, they take out that freshman year tuition and invest the balance. Then in year 2, they take that balance and they take out more money because sophomore year inflation costs more. And then they invest the balance and they go back and forth. They send the university almost $160,000. And that 145 they started with has been spent down to zero. So when they're asking a question, Al, how much is it going to cost? Well, in this example, it's going to cost 145,000. The next question is, well, how much should I save? Well, we go to a different calculator. Here we go to a calculator where it's going to figure out how much they should be saving. Okay. A payment calculator. Okay. So if in the future we know that they need, $146,000, we'll just kind of round up that 146 is needed and it's going to be needed in 8 years and they feel pretty confident earning 6%, then all of a sudden it shows them that they need to be setting aside around $14,000 a year. Is that a number pretty similar, Crystal, to what you see when you do a lot of your college planning discussions with clients?
Oh, nothing is ever as clear as this, Al. I love this.
Okay, well, you're kind. So what we find is we're giving them an answer to how much is it going to cost, 146,000. How much should I be saving? Okay. And what they should be saving is what? That, move out of the way. Come on. Hide that. There we go. How much should they be saving? They should be saving around $14,000 a year. And then the question becomes, okay, the last question would be, where should I put it? And anytime a client asks where, they're basically saying in the menu of products that are available, tell me where to put that money. Now, one of the things I love about the model is it allows us to look at lots of different options so that the client can choose the best option for college planning. Now, one of the things that's very popular is to take and put it in a drawer that you can see right here that's labeled tax-free. So if a client were to take their money and they put it into a 529 plan, Obviously, it's advantageous and it grows tax-free. When they pull it out and use it for education, it's distributed tax-free. And so there are a lot of people that are putting their money away for college in 529 plans. And as soon as they start saving the money there, they go, okay, check, that's off my to-do list, and I'm going to move forward, and I feel like I'm taking care of college. Well, without the model, that's an easy decision. It's a popular decision. But all of a sudden, when we put it on the model, we begin to ask questions. What happens to that strategy if you're involved in a lawsuit? Will that 529 get funded if you have a disability? How does that 529 plan affect your ability to get money from other entities like the government, the institutions? What happens to that 529 plan if mom or dad have a premature death? Is there enough life insurance to continue the funding or to set aside right now a lump sum amount of money so that college is taken care of? Is there enough money set aside for an emergency so that if there is an emergency, college planning doesn't stop? What if the market, we assume 6% in this example. What if the market over the next, in this example, 8 years doesn't generate 6%? How in the world can we balance this $160,000 that's going to go to college, and you're going to have a child walk across the stage with a diploma, but in regards to your retirement, the money that went in, there's nothing left? What if the child gets a scholarship, academic, athletic? The money's not needed. What if they decide college is just not for them? So, as great as the 529 plan is for its tax deferred, tax free treatment of the contributions going in, the money that you grow, the money coming out, as long as it's used for education, as great as all that is, one of the things we find is when we only look at a product to solve this situation, oftentimes the offense and the defense are not in balance. And that's why Crystal and I, when it comes to college planning, instead of a product only approach, is let's look at a strategy approach where those same dollars would go into a strategy, and it might involve a product like a 529, but a strategy that's wrapped around it that says, hey, if you're sued, your child still goes to college. You're disabled, your child still goes to college. Whatever we're doing with the money that we're building up doesn't affect your ability to get money from other entities. If you die prematurely, children still go to college. There's a savings component to where we don't have to worry about liquidity. There are guarantees to offset market risk. What if this strategy, in addition to having college taken care of, was also able to allow you to have some of that money available for yourself for retirement? What if it had the flexibility to where if that money's not needed because your child gets a scholarship, decides not to go, you have the flexibility to do other things with those dollars? So you begin to see kind of how the model works in helping clients understand the good and the bad of product planning for an objective like college versus an opportunity to create a strategy where they have greater peace of mind that the offense and the defense of the decision work, so that the child is going to have an opportunity to go to college no matter what. So, Crystal, I'll stop and see if there are any questions, comments in regards to this discussion about college planning and kind of products and strategy.
So far, we're still good.
Okay. So, the last segment that I want to talk about is really kind of in regards to retirement planning. A lot of people that I meet with, you meet with, Crystal, they use math to make money decisions. I mean, how many times have we seen a formula like this? Wealth equals money times the interest rate times time. If you want to know how much money you're going to have in the future, how much wealth you'll create, there's your mathematical formula. Okay. People will say, well, my goal is to have this amount of money for retirement. I want to have that at 65. I'm not 65. So I'm going to back up to the age that I am now and I'm going to build towards a goal. And I'm going to say, how much money and what interest rate over this period of time do I need to save so that I can create that amount of wealth? You cannot use math to make money decisions. And I'm going to prove that to you, one by an analogy and one with a calculator. So the first one is an analogy. And it's an analogy I call the oranges analogy. So if I give you, anybody on the call, I'll talk to you, Crystal. Let's say you and I'll kind of role play this. Crystal, if I gave you 2 oranges today and I gave you 2 oranges tomorrow, and then I go away and you don't see me for a year, and I come back into your life a year from now, how many oranges are you going to have when we look at it mathematically? 2 today plus 2 tomorrow. In a year, how much mathematically, how many oranges would you have?
Well, logically, I'd say four, but I know that,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So math tells us you're going to have 4 oranges, right?
yeah,
Okay. But in reality, how many oranges would you have?
probably zero.
Okay. Why would that be?
Because I'd eat them, they'd
Okay.
go bad. There wouldn't be anything left in a year.
Right. And
I'd,
what we know is things happen to the oranges. Like you said, you ate them because you didn't know when I was coming back. You knew they would rot. Maybe they were sitting on your desk. Somebody walked by and they're hungry and they go, oh, these look like good oranges, and they stole them. Or you did your best job possible to preserve them until I came back, but Mother Nature turned them to dust. So my question to clients is always this: is money 2 plus 2, $2 a day, $2 tomorrow, always going to equal $4 in a year? Is it like math, or is it really like the oranges? $2 a day plus $2 tomorrow. We really don't know how many dollars we're going to have in a year.
Mhm.
So we can't use math to make money decisions. We actually have to use common sense. We have to do things that balance the offense and the defense, the world that we live in. And let me give you another example. Okay. And I like to use this example of an iceberg. If you think about an iceberg, it kind of looks like this above the water. Okay. If you know much about an iceberg, more is under the water than what you see above the water. Well, when it comes to investing, making money decisions, the world that we live in, the world wants you to only see what's going on above the water. When in reality, what Crystal and I do is we try to make sure our clients see both sides, what's above the water and what's below the water. Now, to do this, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to tell you up front, I am not a very good artist, but we're going to give it a shot to kind of use this iceberg analogy. Okay. And to start with, we're going to use some numbers. Okay. So let's take somebody that was saving $10,000 a year and let's say that they had 30 years before retirement to save and invest in for retirement. And let's say that they were able to average an 11.79% rate of return. So, Crystal, if you and I were running an ad in the paper going, hey, for every dollar that you save over the next 30 years, we can give you an average rate of return of 11.79%, we'd have people lined up for a long way to get in to get a little bit of that. Agree?
Totally.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to show you mathematically why that is. Okay. So I'm going to go here to a calculator. Okay. So one of my favorite calculators is called the versatile calculator. And we're going to put in a 30-year period of time. So let's say I'm dealing with a 35-year-old and they plan to retire at 65. So there's our 30 years. And we're going to put in that average rate of return of 11.79%. And what we see is with the $10,000 a year that they're putting in, they would end up with $2,590,000. Okay. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to round that up to $2.6 million. Okay. So we know mathematically that that's going to end up with $2.6 million 30 years from now at age 65. Now, as I mentioned, investing is very much like an iceberg. So I'm going to draw the water right here. This would be above, this is kind of your above the water. This is kind of our mountain chart of growing from zero, kind of bouncing around and ending up with the 2.6 million. Okay. Many of you've seen online, maybe in advertisements, maybe you've got mailings where you've gotten something that says, hey, past performance is no guarantee of future results, but if you had invested in this fund or if you had invested with us, this is the average rate of return we provided for our clients over the last period of time. This is just an example of that. Well, one of the things that I want you to pay attention to is a statistic. And the statistic is this. With people who were retiring for the first time in 1993, excuse me, how about if I change that to 2023? So like Back to the Future. Sorry about that. Who are retiring for the first time in 2023. Okay. Over 90% of those people that were retiring in 2023 for the first time had less than $1 million saved up. I want to let that sink in. So think about all the people in the world who retired for the first time. They've worked all their life. They were getting ready to retire. They were starting out in 2023. And they looked at their balance sheet of all the assets they had, and it was less than $1 million. Now, if you look at this, somebody saving $10,000 a year for 30 years and getting that average rate of return, having 2.6, they go, well, there's no way I'm going to be that statistic. Well, here's why there's so many people with that statistic. Because under the water, there are these downward pressures that most people are not aware of. Okay? Let's talk about them. Okay? The first one is most people do not understand the difference between an average and a real rate of return. So let me describe that for you. So to do that, I'm going to start with year, beginning of year value, the interest rate or the rate of return that was earned, and then an end of the year value. So if in year one, someone invested $100 and they got 100% rate of return, then obviously at the end of the year, they had $200. Their money had doubled. They'd gotten 100% rate of return. If in year two, they started with that $200 But now all of a sudden the market corrected, and let's say it lost 50%. Then this client is back to $100. Then in year 3, they start with $100 again, and the market really is crazy. And in year 3, it's back up 100%. Then obviously they're back to $200. Year 4 rolls around, they're all excited because they're back with $200. But dadgummit, the market really can't make up its mind and it loses 50% again. So they're back to $100. Now, if you look at the average rate of return, okay, up 100 is 200, minus 50 would be 150, minus another 50 would be 100. 100 divided by 4, the average rate of return is 25%. But when you start with 100 and you end with 100, the real rate of return is 0. So I'm going to stop right here. No matter what you do from this call tonight, promise Crystal, promise me that you will never, ever, ever have a conversation with anybody about your money, investing your money, where they talk about average rates of return. That is a meaningless number. It is all about what is the real rate of return. So to show you what I mean, okay, this, as I mentioned, is an average rate of return. So let's go to their calculator. And I'm going to go to historical rates. So we can track the historical rates of a large cap S&P 500, mid cap, small cap, Dow Jones, all these things, and what the performance of these funds were. So I'm going to use an S&P 500 fund, okay? And I'm going to look at the last 30 years, okay? So I'm going to go here to 1994, okay? And what you will see is the average rate of return was 11.79. But the real rate of return was 9.76. Let me go back here and show you what I'm talking about. If I click this historical rates off, the average rate of return is 11.79. Yes, the average rate of return is 11.79. With that average rate of return, the expectation is they'll end up with 2.6 million. If I click on historical rates, the 11.79 did not change, but the real rate of return did, because now we have years that were more than 11.79. We have some years where less than 11.79. So the average rate of return was 9.76. Well, with 9.76, and nobody's ever going to complain or apologize about getting a real rate of return of 9.76, the difference is you don't end up with 2.6, you end up with 1,000,007. So now all of a sudden, what we find is in reality, your number, okay, is about $863,000 off of what you suspected, simply because you were focused on the average rate of return, which is meaningless, instead of the real rate of return, which would have given you that 1,000,007. Nobody's teaching people this. Number 2, obviously, to get that rate of return, to work with someone who's an investor, there are fees. They don't do it for free. And the fees have all kinds of ranges. I'm going to choose a fairly low fee, which would be 75 basis points, which would be less than 1%. Okay. So if you find an advisor who's going to do something for you, or you find a company that will allow you to invest with them to get that rate of return, that real rate of return of 9.76, you pay them a fee of 0.75. That's pretty good. It's less than one. People don't understand the impact of the fees. So let's go back here and show you. So I'm going to go to expenses. I'm going to put in that management fee here of 0.75. And now instead of $1,000,007, we got about $1,478,000, because here were the fees that we paid out of the account through the years to the investment company or to the advisor who's managing our money and charging us this fee. So fees make a big difference. In this case, it cost about $250,000 of fees and lost interest. Another thing that Crystal and I find that most people don't understand are the impact of taxes. So let's assume this is an account, not in a retirement account, not in a 401k or a Roth or an IRA. This is in an investment account, what we call non-qualified. And let's choose a small number. Let's say the tax rate's 20%. Okay. Many of you on the call or have a tax rate higher than that, but let's just use a low 20%. One of the things that we find is the world does a very poor job of talking to people about the impact of taxes. So we'll go back here to our calculator. We'll load in the taxes of 20%. We'll pay the taxes from the account. In the years where you lost money, you get a credit for those losses. You don't pay taxes in those years. You get a credit. So we'll apply those credits to the years you did make money and had to pay taxes. And now all of a sudden, we went from $1,000,004 down to about $944,000. So the impact of a tax, even at the 20% rate, causes this number to be about $534,000 less. And lastly, a lot of people that are investing, they're being taught that, well, you love your family, you want to take care of your family, you want to protect your family, so do it with term life insurance. Rent your life insurance. And let's say that they buy a policy with $1,000 a year premium. They pay that every year for 30 years. They're alive in 30 years, which is what they wanted to be, but they didn't know that. That's why they bought the policy. So now we got to figure out what is the cost of term. So we go back here to the calculator and go, well, that's a carrying cost to this decision. There's $1,000. We'll net it out of the account, pay it out over the 30 years. And now we went from 944 down to 852. So there went another $90,000 plus. And what we end up with when all is said and done is a client who expected to have $2.6 million. In 30 years from now, they end up with $852,000. And they end up being simply another one of those statistics of someone retiring with less than $1 million. So when we talk to clients about investing, it is not, listen, saving $10,000 a year is a great thing. Being disciplined enough to do it over 30 years is a great thing. A rate of return of 11.79 average, 9.76 real rate return, that's a really good thing. But going into it with the correct expectation of what you're going to build is important. But what's more important is understanding that there are strategies available where we can take the same money for the same period of time, exposing it to the same level of risk. And that strategy has less fees. That strategy pays less in taxes. That strategy may say we don't need term insurance. So if all of a sudden we were able to get some of this money back and add it to the 852, some of these taxes back and add it to the 852, get some of this term cost and add it to the 852, we'll help you get closer to what we call your maximum financial potential. There's really two parts to this, Crystal. Is helping people understand that there's really two sides of investing, what the world wants you to see above the water and what the world kind of hides below the water, and the impact of what's hidden when it comes to average versus real rates return and fees and taxes and the cost of term. And the second thing is helping people to understand that there are strategies available where we can improve the results of what they're doing. Okay.
Okay.
So, what's that?
I said okay. Yep.
Good.
No.
So, that's kind of the third section. I'll stop and answer any questions related to anything we've talked about tonight. I know we said kind of an hour. Let me pull up my watch here. Good. We're right at about an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this is the fabulous wraparound question. So what do you recommend instead? What is the strategy to avoid the fees, the taxes, and the term insurance costs?
Yeah. So one of the things there isn't one strategy, Crystal, because everybody's model is different. Okay. So let's go here real quickly to Jim and Lisa's model for a second. Okay. So one of the things that Jim and Lisa realized once they saw all their information on the model and they saw this is that they were doing some really good stuff down here offensively. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So when they're trying to figure out what to do, one of the things that we were able to do is they had an emergency goal of 25,000. Okay. So all of a sudden we looked at it and said, well, you got about 49,000 between your savings and your money market, and your goal is 25. So you got about $25,000 extra. So one of the things that we were able to do is get them to see the wisdom in taking some of that extra liquidity and going over here and paying off a car loan and going over here and paying off a credit card. Well, now all of a sudden that saved them about $475 a month. So part of fees isn't necessarily the fee inside of a product. Sometimes in this case, it was a fee related to the interest related to debt. So now all of a sudden we got $475 a month that they're now able to keep, that we now take that 475, almost $6,000 a year, and we put it back into the model to help them to create more wealth, to help them to create a better balance, to help pay for some of these things in these areas that are in red. So again, it's not a product ever. It's always macroeconomically going back to the model and strategically looking, is all of your money going in the right places?
And this is one where, so one of the things that me and Al talked about was because there are so many strategies associated with different financial pictures, and I'll share just a couple of mine and one from a previous client too, just to kind of put into perspective for you guys as well on like the college side and some other stuff is because there are so many nuances, we have you plug your information into the model, right? And the point then is for you to be able to see, well, is where is this not working? Or is it perfect? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just dropped in the chat for you guys. We do a 30-minute free consultation. And in preparation for that consultation, you're going to get access to the system to plug in your information. We're going to get together for a conversation to start to get an idea of where you're at and what your goals are so that you could continue working with Al towards your model that makes your goals come to life. So this is something that like I called Al one day and I said, "Hey, so I've got this money in my IRA And I would really want to see how much taxes I would pay if I left it there versus if I moved it to a Roth. And it was like $250,000, assuming I continued to save the same amount in, right? I just saved myself in one move $250,000 on taxes and incrementally grew how much my wealth would be in the future. That was just one piece, right? We had another client we were working with that he had a significant sum of money that was already in his 529, and he asked that question, well, how do I know if I've got what I need covered? We did the math. Well, if this is what you say you're willing to do, then this is what we have and this is what works. But what didn't work was all of the rest of the financial picture where he had gotten an inheritance and needed to figure out how to protect that asset. So we were talking about trusts and how to make that work so that if something bad happened, his daughter still could go to college and that nothing else would disrupt the model. Right. So it's super interesting to be able to see how these different pieces play out for different families in different circumstances. And so next steps in terms of that conversation would be find a time on the calendar so we can plug and play and see what that looks like for you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Good. Other questions?
One on, could you talk more about the umbrella liability insurance? I don't know about that. I know about it for business, but not for personal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you look at Jim and Lisa's car insurance and property insurance, these numbers 100, 300, those are the liability limits. 100,000 per person, up to 300,000 per accident, 300,000 per incident if it's outside of your car. Basically, this is the maximum amount USAA, Geico, Progressive, whoever you have your insurance with is going to pay if you're involved in a lawsuit. Well, one of the things we compare, and we did this with Jim and Lisa, is your maximum is 300,000. Your assets are worth down here at the time about 772,000. So they have less liability protection than the assets that they owned. So one of the things that we did is we contacted their insurance company and we said, we would like to get a quote for $1 million of umbrella liability. Umbrella liability picks up as soon as these underlying maximums are met. Now, I don't know about where you live, Crystal, and the people that are calling in. In North Carolina, you can get $1 million of umbrella liability and the premium's about $250 a year. Okay. Now, one of the things that I asked, which was interesting, is I asked Jim and Lisa, I said, you have $250 deductibles for your comp and your collision. So let me ask you a question. Let's say that you did $1,000 worth of damage to your car. It was your fault. Would you A, turn the claim in and get your car fixed, or would you B, go to your savings account or your money market account down here and pay the $1,000 to get your car fixed? They go, ow, that's easy. We take it out of our savings or our money market. And I go, why was that? Why would you do that? And they go, because we know if we turn a claim in, our premiums go up. So all of a sudden, the model helped them see they have the liquidity down here to actually raise these deductibles to the $1,000 that they're going to pay out of pocket. And as soon as they did that, their premium came down for their vehicle. And we took that premium savings and we routed it over here to help pay for the umbrella liability. So hopefully whoever asked the question, that was enough of an explanation that helped you understand what an umbrella liability is, how important it is, but then also how we can use the model to make some changes to help pay for it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good. Good. Any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, I want to say thank you for
Oh,
taking the time and hanging out with us and doing this because I love this stuff. It's so fabulous.
well, I appreciate it. It is something that's been near and dear to my heart. We are bombarded, and I heard this. I'm rephrasing this. I heard this the other day, which I think is fairly descriptive. We're bombarded every day with what we call financial pornography. And I think it is so important for people to know the truth about money and how money really works. People work way, way, way too hard for their money. And there's too many things out there telling do this, don't do this, etc. And it's based on popular opinion, it's based on math. And it's really simple to take people that really care and want to be um, really intentional about their money to make good decisions if they simply just see it on the model. The comment, Crystal, all the time when we talk about the model and potential change of the model is the clients go, God, Al, this makes so much sense. I mean, just that little move of, hey, let's use your liquidity to raise your deductibles and let's take the premium savings to add $1 million of umbrella liability. They're like, leave. Man, I'm definitely going to do that. That makes perfect sense. But I'd have never known to do all that without your help and without the model. So, Crystal, I appreciate the opportunity. Always enjoy working with you. As I said to begin with, all those that dialed in tonight, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Um, I really have enjoyed this. And I think, Crystal, you said it's recorded. So if you hear something in the recording or you have a question, just pop that question to Crystal and she'll forward it to me and one of us will follow back up with you.
Yep. And so, yeah, the link in terms of getting scheduled will go out in a reminder email as well with a recording. If somebody that you wanted to have here tonight wasn't able to, then feel free to forward it off, and share the love.
Yep. Good.
All right,
Good.
everybody, have a great night.
Perfect.